Fáilte óisteach go Suantraí. So you're very welcome as we gather this evening to look at the readings of the sacred liturgy of the Eucharist for tomorrow. Tomorrow being the 26th of May, Wednesday. As we gather this evening, the reading is from the Gospel of St. Mark. And it's an excellent example of how people don't listen to God and don't listen to Jesus because they're so full of their own agendas. So listen to this. The disciples were on the road going up to Jerusalem. Jesus was walking on ahead of them. He's on his own. They were in a daze. They weren't with him at all. And they were following, and those following were apprehensive. Once more taking the 12 aside, he began to tell them what was going to happen to him. Now we're going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man is about to be handed over to the chief priests and the scribes. They will condemn him to death. They will hand him over to the pagans, who will mock him and spit at him and scourge him and put him to death. And after 3 days he will rise again. My God, listening to that, wouldn't your heart be moved to the pain of Jesus as he reflects on the ordeal that is facing him? And what's the response? James and John, the sons of Zebedee, approach him. Master, they said, we want you to do us a favour. He said to them, what is it you want me to do for you? They said, allow us to sit one at your right and the other at your left in your glory. You do not know what you're asking, Jesus said to them. Can you drink the cup that I must drink, or be baptized with the baptism with which I must be baptized? They replied, we can. And Jesus said to them, the cup that I must drink, you shall drink. And with the baptism with which I must be baptized, you shall be baptized. But as for the seats on my right and my left, they are not mine to grant. They belong to those to whom they have been allotted. When the other 10 heard this, they began to feel indignant with James and John. So Jesus called them over and said to them, you know that among the pagans, their so-called rulers lord it over them, and their great men make their authority felt. This must not happen among you. No, anyone who wants to become great among you must be your servant. And anyone who wants to be first among you must be slave to all. For the Son of Man himself did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. We see there the contrast. Christ pours out his heart and the pain of his heart. They're unable to hear because their thoughts, their longings are so filling them that they are unable to become attentive to the pain around them. And so often in life, when we come to pray, remember that Samuel was told that the heart of prayer was to say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. Sometimes I think the way we learn to pray, we wanted to say, Lord, listen, your servants are speaking. We're often deaf to what Christ wants to tell us because we're so full of wants rather than needs. God will meet our needs in his generosity, which we have been discussing. But your wants will drive you crazy and deprive you of being able to hear what God is saying to you. Beware of wanting more and more. Become attentive to the generosity of God and be filled with gratitude. There's a lovely word in Irish we can use about God. God is flathúlach. He's generous in a wonderful way. He gives an abundance. And if we're so full of wants, we can fail to recognize that God is Flahurshak. There's one little passage in the first reading I'd like you to just draw strength from tomorrow. And it's this: have mercy, Lord, on the people who have invoked your name, on Israel, whom you've treated as a firstborn son. The most precious thing on earth was the firstborn son in Deuteronomy, was always dedicated to God, and Israel has been dedicated to God. Now, in the Jerusalem Bible, they dropped the firstborn son and just put in firstborn, and it misses the point that the Lord is saying that Israel is consecrated to God, and you were consecrated to God in baptism, and you can always say, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. St. Philip Neri used to say, and his feast is tomorrow, that we are sinners redeemed by Christ. Yes, we are sinners, but we're redeemed by Christ. Philip Neri was full of joy. He had a beautiful cat who had adopted him. As you know, if you have cats, you don't own a cat. The cats adopt you. And he loved his cat, and they were friends. And he was full of sport and crack. He was a very joyful saint, because he was made joyful by recognizing that God is Flahulak, that God is generous and treats us as the firstborn son, consecrated and joined to him. You have a lovely evening. Please God, we'll all have a wonderful sleep, and that we'll wake in the morning with the praise of God bubbling up in our hearts and on our lips. Until we meet again in prayer or in reflection, Slán go fóill, bye for now. Slán agus banach.